Staying connected in Japan can catch travelers off guard, including us.
Japan is known for being a high-tech country, but there are a few challenges you'll want to know about to make sure you don't get stuck without being able to use your phone.
In this video, we'll share 9 things to know that have made staying connected in Japan much easier for us.
For us, having reliable connectivity is not so we can be glued to a screen all day. Connectivity allows us to find our way around, look things up on the fly, communicate, and not feel stressed when plans change, especially in a place where language and systems may be unfamiliar.
The first thing to know is that while Japan has strong mobile infrastructure, your options as a traveler can be more limited than you might expect.
Local SIM cards from phone companies are not always available to short-term visitors. We actually went into a phone shop ourselves and were told that you need a Japanese residency card to sign up. We also tested the international data that's included with JED's T-Mobile One plan here, and it's too slow to really be helpful.
Other plans may have better speeds, but defaulting to your home carrier's international add-on isn't usually the best value anyway.
Japan does offer Wi-Fi in places like train stations, cafes, shopping centers, but it's often password protected, so free public Wi-Fi is not as consistently available as you might expect. There were a couple dozen places where we tried to access the free public Wi-Fi, but we were only successful twice.
Sometimes we didn't know the password or required an account to log on. Also, once you're out exploring, Wi-Fi doesn't really cut it. You still need mobile data to navigate outside, looking things up, messaging accommodations, drivers, or guides, and adjust plans on the fly.
Having your own data connection on your phone and understanding what you can do offline gives you flexibility and peace of mind when you're away from Wi-Fi.
And a note for all the foreigners and nomads who are buying or renting houses in Japan, setting up Wi-Fi where you're staying apparently requires a Japanese bank account. That's why our apartment here doesn't include Wi-Fi, but since we needed to work online for 3 weeks, it gave us the opportunity to test out some options.
At a high level, there are 4 common options for travelers to stay connected in Japan. We already talked about Wi-Fi and some of the challenges with that. Then there's international roaming through your home carrier, which can be hit or miss and often expensive. Portable Wi-Fi hotspot devices are another option. And finally, eSIMs.
You'll want to figure out which one fits your phone and your trip. To do that, you need to figure out whether your phone is unlocked, eSIM compatible, and how much data do you realistically need.
If you're part of our Intentional Travelers TOOLKIT membership, we walk through these options step by step inside our worldwide connectivity tutorials so you can find the right fit for your situation.
These days, we usually prefer eSIMs, but in Japan especially, hotspots can also be a strong option.
When you first arrive in Japan, you're likely navigating trains, signs in another language, and figuring out how to get to your accommodation. We arrived from Vietnam via an overnight stopover in South Korea, and our regional Asia eSIM actually still worked when we landed in each of those 3 countries.
Yeah, which made a huge difference.
While in Japan, after our regional eSIM expired, we had to go find Wi-Fi in a shopping center in order to purchase a new eSIM plan. We ran into a few issues with our credit card company needing to verify the purchase. That's just not something you want to deal with when you're tired or just arriving.
That's why setting up your phone in advance, including your eSIM purchase and activation, is a gift to your future self. To help you fully prepare your phone for travel abroad, you can download our pre-trip phone checklist, linked below the video for free, or join our TOOLKIT membership for more in-depth guidance.
One thing travelers don't always realize is how quickly data gets used when traveling. Especially if you don't have Wi-Fi at your accommodations, which these days has really only happened to us in Japan.
Since we work online, we switched to an unlimited eSIM plan for the first time. We chose a regional plan from UBG, which gives us about 60 gigs of high-speed data for the month. It was only about $1 extra to include other Asian countries outside of Japan, which is great because we'll be transiting through Thailand later in the month. However, one thing we learned is that unlimited doesn't mean you can use as much high-speed data as you want. Most unlimited eSIM plans throttle speeds to about 1 or 2 megabytes per second after a certain cap, so pay attention to that.
Working online and taking video calls, we used over 3 gigs on the first day. Usually when we have free Wi-Fi at our accommodations, our cell data usage rarely exceeds 3 gigs in a whole month.
So that 60 gig plan actually wasn't enough for us. We ended up getting a hotspot device from Japan Wireless just so we wouldn't have to worry about data usage while working.
Note that if you want to connect your laptop, tablet, or other family member phones, you need to have a data plan that allows you to use the phone as a hotspot, also called tethering. This way, each device doesn't necessarily need its own eSIM, they can share the same data plan. Not all eSIM or international plans allow hotspotting though, and some have tethering limits, so that's something that you'll want to check.
And if a plan has data caps, you'll want to adjust data usage settings on any connected device to ensure that it doesn't eat through more data than necessary.
The next thing to know, when you travel, you're navigating constantly, looking things up, translating, taking photos, and in Japan, you may be relying on your phone even more for transit. All of this uses up battery life.
Of course, a data plan is no good if your phone runs out of battery. And keep in mind that outlets aren't always available for charging when you're out and about. This is why we always carry a small power bank, especially for long days out. Just be sure to follow airline rules about where and when you're allowed to use it on the plane.
Up next, what apps do we use the most in Japan? First, Google Maps we use constantly, and it seems to be quite accurate for public transportation here. WhatsApp we use for communicating, including with each other. Google Translate, especially the camera function, so we could read signs and product labels, etc., along with the offline language map.
Right. These apps handle most of our day-to-day logistics, and if you want easy-to-follow guidance on how to use them effectively, that's exactly what our members learn inside of our Smartphone Savvy Travel course. We also use a free currency conversion app to help us do the math on prices.
And we did start out using the mobile Suica card app for public transit. It's available only for iPhones with Apple Pay right now. And it allowed us to swipe our phones for subway, buses, and trains in Fukuoka instead of loading money onto a physical transit card. But we've also been able to just swipe our credit cards here to pay directly. So turns out we don't actually need the app, at least in Fukuoka.
Speaking of transit, you might also want a ride-hailing app like GoTaxi or Uber, depending on the city and how you like to get around.
The big takeaway, staying connected in Japan is very doable, but it can require a bit more planning and a few intentional decisions ahead of time.
As we mentioned, choosing the right setup for your phone and navigating confidently during your trip are things we cover for our members inside our TOOLKIT tutorials.
Don't forget to download the free phone prep checklist linked below. We hope this gives you a clearer picture of what to expect and a little more confidence heading into your Japan trip. Happy travels!
Sayonara!